حي على الفلاح.
Musaylima, recant, do not contend, for in prophethood you have not been given a share. You lied about Allah regarding His revelation, and your desires are the whims of a stupid fool. Your people have indulged you instead of preventing you. But if Khalid ibn Al-Walid comes to them, you will be abandoned. Then you will have no stairway to the heavens, and no path to travel in the earth. Of all the impostors and false prophets who rose in Arabia, the most notorious was Musaylima, who belonged to the Banu Hanifa tribe of Central Arabia. Musaylima visited Madina during the life of the Prophet and enjoyed the privilege of his company for some time. On return from Madina, Musaylima, however, laid claim to a divine mission and founded a new creed. He relieved his followers from the obligations of fasting and zakat. He reduced the number of daily prayers. He legalized adultery and drinking. In imitation of the Holy Quran, he recited rhythmical sentences and bits of doggerel which he had himself composed, but gave out as having been revealed by God. He was endowed with a superb physique and an attractive personality. He was a good speaker. He could sway the masses. He exploited these qualities and succeeded in winning over a considerable following. Musaylima came across Amr ibn al-As. He said, "Oh Amr, do you know what had come down to me yesterday?" He said, "A surah has come down to me similar to Surah Al-Fil. Don't you Muslims have the verse? Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the people of the elephant? Well, I have a revelation like Surah Al-Fil as well." Amr then said, "Let us hear it." Musaylima then recited, "The elephant, and what will make you know the elephant? He has a long trunk and a short tail." And that was the end of the verse. Amr ibn al-As just stared at him for a moment and said, "Okay, so what else has come down to you?" Musaylima said, "Also, it was sent down to me Surah Al-Dhifda, the fraud." Amr said, "Okay, let me hear it." Musaylima said, "O frog, you clean what you want to clean. Neither do you drink, nor do you disturb the mud." The end. Amr stared at him and said, "O Musaylima, I swear by Allah that you know that I know you're a liar." Meaning there's no need for me to tell you I think you're a liar. You know I think you're a liar. Some people had gathered around him knowing that he was a liar, and their logic was, a liar of Yamamah is better than a truthful person of Hijaz. This sentence was uttered by one of the supporters of Musaylima. When he asked him, "Does an angel descend on you?" He said, "Yes, its name is Rahman." The man asked, "Is that angel in light or in darkness?" Musaylima replied, "In darkness." The man said, "I testify that you are a liar. However, a liar of Yamamah is better than a truthful person of Hijaz." When asked by the Holy Prophet to abandon his pretensions, Musaylima sent an impudent letter demanding the division of the Arabian Peninsula into two halves. One part to be earmarked for the Muslims, and the other to be the exclusive reserve for Musaylima and his followers. The Holy Prophet addressed him as Musaylima, the liar, and said that all land belonged to God, and he gave its control to such person as he willed. The Holy Prophet deputed Nahr al-Rajal, a Muslim convert from the tribe of Banu Hanifa, to go back to his people and propagate Islam. On return to his tribe, Nahr al-Rajal fell a victim to the blandishments of Musaylima. He declared falsely that he was witness to the fact that the Prophet had acknowledged Musaylima as co-sharer in the divine mission. That established the credentials of Musaylima, and the number of his followers increased considerably. With the death of the Prophet, Musaylima gained in strength further. The general argument that prevailed with the people was that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was dead while Musaylima was alive. A living prophet was to be preferred to a dead prophet. Many tribes who were hostile to Islam joined his ranks. Abu Bakr originally entrusted the operations against Musaylima to Ikrimah, son of Abu Jahl. Shurabil bin Hasna was to advance with another column to the assistance of Ikrimah. Abu Bakr issued strict orders that action against Musaylima was to be taken only when the two columns joined together. Ikrimah was the first to reach the Yamamah valley where Musaylima was lodged. Without waiting for Shurabil, Ikrimah launched an attack against Musaylima. The Muslims were beaten back with considerable losses. When the news of defeat reached Madina, Abu Bakr felt much distressed. He asked Ikrimah not to return to Madina. Sometime later, Shurabil arrived in the Yamamah valley with his column. He also opened an attack against Musaylima without waiting for help. He was also beaten with considerable loss. Two successive defeats created an embarrassing situation for the Muslims. That raised the morale of the followers of Musaylima, who proudly declared that Musaylima was indeed a prophet and divine help was on their side. It was at this critical juncture that Abu Bakr commissioned Khalid bin Walid to undertake operations against Musaylima. Elaborate arrangements were made to reinforce the army of Khalid. Seasoned soldiers were included in the force under his command. Bara bin Malik and Thabit bin Qais led the contingents of the Ansar, while Abu Khadifa bin Utbah and Zayd bin Khattab led the contingent of the Muhajirin. Against his declared policy, Abu Bakr permitted the veterans of Badr to join the forces of Khalid. Those who joined the force included Abdurrahman, son of Abu Bakr, Abdullah, son of Umar, Abu Dujana, the renowned warrior of Uhud, and Manwiyah, who later founded the Umayyad rule. From Medina, the Muslim army proceeded to Buta'a. Here, contingents from the Muslim tribes joined the force. From there, the Muslim army marched south to Yamamah Valley under the command of Khalid bin Walid. In the way, the Muslim army came across some men of Banu Hanifa, led by Maja' bin Murrah. All of them, except Maja', were put to death under the orders of Khalid. Maja' was kept in custody to serve as a hostage. He was put in chains and entrusted to the custody of Layla, the new wife of Khalid, who accompanied him to the battlefield. Musaylima intercepted the advance of the Muslim army at the plain of Aqraba. Here, the two opposing armies arranged their ranks for the battle. The battle that followed was hotly contested. The forces of Musaylima numbered over 40,000, while the strength of the Muslim army did not exceed 15,000. Besides being outnumbered, the Muslim forces suffered from certain disabilities. There were differences between the tribes, the Ansar and the Muhajirin. The dust storm blew across the valley against the faces of the Muslims. Taking advantage of this, the forces of Musaylima increased their pressure, and the Muslims had to fall back. Some men of the Banu Hanifa even reached the tent of Khalid, where Maja' was in chains guarded by Layla. These men wanted to slay Layla and rescue Maja'. Maja' called upon them to desist from raising their hands against a woman. These men left the camp and said that they would return after some time to rescue Maja'. In the confusion that followed, the party could not come back, And in the meantime, the Muslims were able to take precautionary measures. When the battle for the first day ended, there was jubilation in the camp of Musaylima. Though Khalid had been forced to withdraw, he refused to admit defeat. He regrouped his army in tribal commands and exhorted the various tribes to show their valor on the battlefield. From within the Mecca and Madinite horsemen, he created a reserve force of 1,000 cavalrymen and kept them under his personal command. When the battle began on the next day, the forces of Musaylima, elated by the pride of victory on the first day, made the bid to push forward. Bara was the commander of one of the Muslim wings. He was a brother of Anas, the personal attendant of the Holy Prophet. There was a strange peculiarity of Bara. Whenever he would go to fight, his whole body would shake, necessitating others to hold him. After some time, his body would stop shaking and he would feel electrified. He would then rush forward against the enemy and fight like a lion. At the battle of Aqraba, he had his fit of shivering, and thereafter he plunged into the thick of the battle, crying, "O Muslims, where do you go? Here am I, Bara bin Malik, come to me." Bara and his men made a determined charge. Abdul Rahman, the son of Abu Bakr, shot an arrow from his bow that slew Muhkam bin Tufayl, who commanded the forces of Musaylima. At this stage, the two armies faced each other in a headlong combat. As the forces of Musaylima were larger in number, such state of affairs was advantageous to them. While the front ranks of the two armies grappled with each other in hand-to-hand fight, Khalid collected his cavalry reserves and, carrying out a wide outflanking movement, dashed for the mounds where the camp of Musaylima was located. The boldness of the move of Khalid took Banu Hanifa completely by surprise. The bodyguard of Musaylima fought valiantly, but they could not hold ground for long. As Khalid increased his pressure, Musaylima lost his nerves and retreated to a neighboring fortified garden. With the withdrawal of Musaylima, his army lost the will to fight, and they too found safety in seeking refuge in the garden. A huge wall surrounded the garden, and the fugitives closed the gate, thus shutting access to the pursuing Muslims. Bara bin Malik asked his companions to lift him to the top of the garden wall, and from there he jumped into the garden. Some other Muslims did likewise, thus hazarding their lives. This group of Muslims rushed to the gate and opened it. With the opening of the gate, the Muslim army rushed into the garden and let loose a rain of carnage on the Banu Hanifa. The Banu Hanifa fought desperately for sheer survival, but theirs was a losing battle. All advantages now lay with the Muslims. So bloody was the battle of the garden that in the Arab annals, it came to be known as the Battle of the Garden of Death. In the Muslim ranks, there were some women as well. One of them was Ammara. She had fought in the Battle of Uhud, and when wave after wave of the enemy rushed to attack the Prophet, she shielded him, in which task she received no less than 12 wounds. After the death of the Prophet, her son Habib, while returning from Oman, fell into the hands of Musaylima, the liar. Habib was required to disown the Prophet of Islam and offer allegiance to the false prophet Musaylima. Habib refused, and for his faith in Islam he was put to death. Ammara thereupon vowed vengeance against Musaylima. When Abu Bakr ordered the operations against Musaylima, Ammara accompanied the Muslim force, fired with the urge to take revenge. In the Garden of Death, penetrating through the ranks of the enemy, she reached close to Musaylima. At that time, an Abyssinian fighting in the Muslim ranks threw in a javelin at Musaylima. At the Battle of Uhud, Wahshi had fought on the side of the Quraysh against the Muslims. and he had slayed Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, with his javelin. Later, he became a Muslim and he fought in the various battles during the caliphate of Abu Bakr. When Wahshi threw his javelin, Abdullah, another son of Amara, who was with her in the battle, rushed forward and fell on Musaylima with his sword. Musaylima fell dead. His head was hoisted for all to see. Thereupon, the Banu Hanifa formally surrendered. With such surrender, the valley of Yamamah, which had so long defied Islam, lay prostrate at the feet of the Muslims.